What's up guys, it's Daz here, but you don't really care, as it's time for another video, and boy, this one's going to be big. I mean, look at the length of the video. Again, I haven't actually seen it, but Jesus! Mainly because I got this massive, and I'm talking massive message from Zerio920, or 920, or whatever. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but you can see it there, so yeah. So basically, because this video is going to be so big, as far as I know, I'm going to put it into separate sections. So here you go, click it, and hey look, you can defy time. Yay. Right, so I will be reading this message now and randomly pointing stuff out. Alright then, let's begin. Dear Daz, I think I have found something that might be hinting a new mechanic in the third Pikmin game. You may or may not have heard of the Pikmin Adventure minigame in Nintendo Land for the Wii U. Yes, this whole video is going to be Nintendo Land, just warning you. Well, it's great. I would go as far as to say that it is the main attraction in the entire game. It feels so much like a Pikmin game that I really would not complain if Pikmin 3 ends up becoming similar to this, but I don't think that's likely now. Anyways, Pikmin Adventure in Nintendo Land for the Wii U and the main Pikmin series do share some distinct parallels. For example, in Pikmin Adventure, you can either play as Captain Olimar or a large Pikmin. For example, I just read that. Pikmin can attack enemies themselves, while Olimar uses regular-sized Pikmin to tussle with his foes. Olimar only has the aid of 3 primary Pikmin, red, blue and yellow. The colours usually does not matter when fighting enemies. The secondary Pikmin in Pikmin 2, the Wurts, the whites, purples and bulbmin, do not make an appearance in this game. Or do they? I don't know. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. Well, that's the end of the video guys. Nah, I'm just kidding, I'll tell you. If you're somehow able to manage to gather a group of 4 other players from somewhere else to play Pikmin Adventure alongside with you, which makes 5 players in total, if you had not actually worked that out, you're not very good at simple arithmetic, then the 5th player would end up playing as a large white Pikmin. Unfortunately, the white Pikmin in this game does not have any special abilities compared to the other large or normal sized Pikmin. So that must be the only occurrence of a secondary Pikmin in the game, right? Right? Well, actually not. In the game, there are special power-ups you can collect to strengthen your abilities. One of which is a hammer seed, which, if you use it while playing as Olimar, your Pikmin will grow cute little sledgehammers on their heads that will help them to defeat their enemies much quicker. In throwing your cute little Pikmin to their doom, while equipped in this hammer power-up, they will fly into the air and slam down onto their target enemy with such force, dealing major damage. Sometimes, you can land a critical hit with your hammer Pikmin and actually stun the enemy you're attacking, leaving space for you to go all out on the enemy. Sound familiar? Then you might be thinking of the purple Pikmin from Pikmin 2. Unless you're not, then, well, I really have nothing to say to you people. So what, you may be thinking to yourselves? So purple Pikmin make a small cameo appearance in the Pikmin Adventure game. What does this have to do with Pikmin 3? Well, I'll tell you right now. As I said before, the hammer seed is but one of the beneficial power-ups you can equip in the Pikmin Adventure. There are 3 different power-ups you can find in total in Pikmin Adventure. Now, assuming that the hammer seed was meant to reference, sort of, the purple Pikmin from Pikmin 2, who's to say that the other 2 power-ups don't reference other, possibly brand new types of Pikmin in Pikmin 3? Well then, maybe if we look at the effects of the Pikmin Adventure power-ups, and closely examine the Pikmin we already know about, we could possibly try to link the power-ups with their matching Pikmin. If none of the Pikmin that we already know of match one of the power-ups, then maybe we are looking at a brand new sort of Pikmin still to be discovered. Oh, this is going to be so much fun! Right, let's do this thing! The second power-up you find in Pikmin Adventure is called the Whip Seed, giggity. But it really isn't as disturbing as it sounds. Collecting these whip seeds will cause your Pikmin, if you're playing as Olimar, to grow incredibly long stems in a sort of spring-like formation on their head. When throwing your little Pikmin with the whip seed equipped, God, that was a mouthful, they will fly high into the sky and start glowing like fireworks, and then they home in onto their targets, eventually finally landing on said enemy and beating the stuffing out of it. Or in this case, since we're talking about enemies from Pikmin Adventure, which are all pretty much mechanical machines, beating the living wires or whatever out of that enemy. And also with the power-up, you can now hit enemies from long distance, since the Pikmin now home in and fly in towards their enemy. Now, homing onto, well, purple sort of homed onto their enemy, kind of like the homing stomp from Mario Galaxy. But purples are already represented as hammer seeds in this game. Plus, purple Pikmin aren't really used as a long-range weapon anyhow. They're more of sort of a short distance yet super powerful weapon thing. Yellows are long distance though, aren't they? Well, they fly up higher than any other Pikmin, so I suppose that counts for enough. But they don't home in on their enemy like purples. I cannot think of any other Pikmin that is both long distance and homing, which means it must be a brand new type of Pikmin! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, 1111 gasp. Now, what are the two Pikmin we know of in Pikmin 3 so far? Well, we know about the rock Pikmin, but they aren't exactly long distance or homing, but we do know of one other. As at the time of this writing, non-disclosed Pikmin in the game, Pink Pikmin! Now, since we do not know very much about these Pinkmin, it probably won't do us very much good to make any assumptions here, but let's make these assumptions anyway. Now, think of these Pikmin for a moment. Their most prominent feature by far is their wings and their ability to fly, as seen during the end of the Pikmin 3 trailer. So, would it be a bit of a stretch to assume that these Pinkmin could use their wings to aid them in gliding towards their enemy? And with those giant blue eyes, maybe they could see their enemies from farther away or something, so they'd be long distance as well, kind of like eagles, and then they can home onto them. Of course they might! Which means that we could presumably assume that the whip seeds might represent pink Pikmin, as in Pikmin 3, of course. I could and most likely will be wrong here, and this might actually just hint at a brand new type of Pikmin, but nonetheless, it's something to think about. And last but not least, we have the Knuckle Seed power-up. While you have the Knuckle Seed equipped, you can take on a cool fighting stance while idle. But that's not important right now. When equipped, the Pikmin will grow fists on their stems and can be thrown like bullets, speeding towards their target and slamming major damage upon impact before bouncing off. Now, personally, if I were in charge of the naming of these things, I would probably name this power-up the Bullet Seed after the Pokemon move, but hey, I guess Knuckle Seed will have to do. Now, this might be a bit of a stretch to assume that this would represent Rock Pikmin, but I think this power-up might represent Rock Pikmin. Mostly the causing great damage upon impact and then bouncing off bit. Though I have no idea whether or not Rock Pikmin get thrown further than any other types of Pikmin, because of what we know about the Rock Pikmin thus far, they don't get thrown faster like the Knuckle Seeds, which speeds towards targets like a bullet, thus far. So it could be a new type of Pikmin. I mean, it might. It's exciting to think about these types of things, you know? Now, we haven't even touched upon the new mechanics in the game. Well, for one thing, Olimar can speedily roll right past the path of the vicious enemies, and safely out of danger. I do believe that rolling is a new mechanic that will be present in Pikmin 3. I found that rolling, at least in Pikmin Adventure, is a very useful skill to master to safely avoid enemy attacks. In fact, I think I'll be using that a lot when Pikmin 3 rolls by this spring/summer. Speaking of new mechanics, Pikmin Adventure had caves just like Pikmin 2, except its caves weren't just like Pikmin. In fact, they were a lot darker than in Pikmin 2. I mean, I know Pikmin 2 had caves that were pretty dark, but Pikmin Adventure's caves weren't just pretty dark, they were dark. I mean, the type of darkness that you can't even see your own hands in. And your little beacon on your helmet? Yeah, that doesn't do much either. The only way you could receive enough light to be able to see clearly enough to move around would be the glow caps scattered around the sublevels. Besides the light from you and your Pikmin, the glow caps themselves also provide a ton of light for you to use. Well, not by themselves, but if you walk up to one and simply touch it, well, the glow cap dust, I'm assuming, sticks to your suit and makes you all shiny, enough to light up for the entire freaking cave. This is only an assumption for how this works. I mean, there really isn't an explanation within the game as to why touching a glow cap makes you shiny. Unfortunately for you, however, the glow cap dust loses light after a few seconds, so you'll need to replenish your light by touching the glow caps in the level. Usually there's a sort of path of glow caps for you to follow, so the game isn't very punishing with the whole darkness aspect. Now, why is it so dark down there? Well, I think the real question is, why are the Pikmin 2 caves so damn light? I mean, if you're, several feet down below the ground already, it would be pitch black down there, not the sort of darkness of most levels in the Pikmin 2. I mean, this was most likely adding a benefit to the players, but where is the light coming from? It makes no sense! The only light that should be visible at that level is the light from the beacon and your bioluminescent Pikmin army. And then, on top of that, even the amount of light generated by your 100 Pikmin army wouldn't be enough to light the whole sub-level. It's ridiculous! That's Nintendo logic. They could have at least tried to provide some sort of explanation for this. If I sound angry, I'm really not, I'm just pointing something out here. And this is why the caves in Pikmin Adventure are way more realistic than the caves in Pikmin 2. I mean, it's all about the lighting. Fortunately, someone at Nintendo must have figured out that all that light down there just isn't realistically possible. And that may be the reason the cave scene in Pikmin 3 is all damp and dark, just to make it more realistic. And similar to Pikmin Adventure, in Pikmin 3, touching the globe caps, well, it doesn't really make you yourself shiny, but it does produce a ton of light to help you look around. And your whistle itself creates some light as well, if you need a quick and temporary source of such light. Now, I have absolutely no idea how the whistle can create an area to call back Pikmin in, but oh well, just another one of those unexplainable mysteries of Pikmin, I guess. And on the subject of enemies, two new families of Pikivores make their debut in Pikmin Adventure, the Beeb and the Pinchipede family, which have relatives in their names representing them in the Pikmin Adventure game. I do believe that Beeb-like creatures may or may not appear in Pikmin 3, but more importantly, I think that Pinchipede, like Pikivores, will appear, mostly because only two creatures from the Pinchipede family are discovered in Pikmin Adventure, both being bosses. In addition, if you look closely at a picture and the attack patterns of the Emperor, or the monochromatic Pinchipedes, since I'm colourblind, I may or may not actually know the difference of this. You can see a distinct similarity to the Armoured Mordad from the Pikmin E3 demo, though they both scoop up their prey into their gaping jaws with their giant pincers, and both roam around the arena at an incredibly fast pace to try and catch you off guard. And this could only indicate one thing. If Pikmin Adventure had bosses, similar to Pikmin 3 bosses, maybe the only bosses in this game could also correlate with the brand new Pikmin 3 bosses. Maybe, just maybe, by closely examining the other bosses in Pikmin Adventure, we can predict the types of new bosses in Pikmin 3. So, let us begin with the first boss you encounter in the game, which would be the ferocious, terrifying Bulblord, which is an awesome name by the way. It pretty much just looks like a giant fat Bulborb. It runs around the arena to try and kill you or your partners. And an important thing I forgot to mention before, when you are eaten by any sort of Bulborb in the Pikmin Adventure game, you get turned into a Bulborb poop, which means you are pretty much paralysed and incapable of doing anything until your normal sized Pikmin break you free. Bulborb poop is not the only thing that can paralyse you, however. Some of the Bulborbs and Blowhogs, they aren't actually called Blowhogs in this game, they are called telescoping pump hogs. But hey, spit water at you, which does not harm you, but paralyses you similar to the Bulborb poop, leaving you vulnerable to most hazardous attacks by other enemies. Maybe paralysis or some other status effect could take an appearance in Pikmin 3 as well, although, as to how you would actually be able to cure yourself, I have no clue. But it is a definite possibility. So anyways, as I was saying, the evil scary Bulblord can turn you into poop, but it also has the ability to use a rolling attack similar to the Empress Bulblax in Pikmin 2. The only problem with this is, compared to an Empress Bulblax, the Bulborb is quite small and does not fill the entire arena like the Empress Bulblax. Plus, or minus, since it can only roll in two directions, its rolling attack is not as devastating to you as compared to the Empress Bulblax attack, as long as you know how to move out of the way. An interesting attack move you can perform in this fight, however, is the ability to attack the eyes of the Bulblord, which is actually the title of an achievement you can earn in the game. Maybe there'll be optional achievements in Pikmin 3 as well for doing certain stuff. If you remember in the Pikmin 3 announcement, Miyamoto states that in the game, if you remember, you will be able to attack your enemies in certain parts of the bodies now to deal extra damage, thanks to the new Motion Plus or something like that. For example, in Pikmin 3, you will now be able to attack the eyes of the Bulblords to stun them. Well, attacking and destroying the eyes of the Bulblord boss in Pikmin Adventure produces a similar attack, as the Bulblorb is now unable to see you and affects his attack patterns, making him easier to hit. Well then, this only provides more parallels between the two games. Let's move on to the second boss found in the game, which is a large mouth Wollywog. As you can tell by its title, it is a close relative of the regular and yellow versions of the Wollywog present in both Pikmin games. The distinct similarities separating this Wollywog from its canon counterparts, however, is, as you may have already guessed at this point by the title of the creature, the inclusion of a large mouth. Unlike its cousins, this Wollywog does not attack by simply jumping on its prey a la Super Mario. Instead, it uses its tongue to harm you and your Pikmin. By this point, I forgot to mention an unimportant yet significant difference between Pikmin Adventure and the Pikmin series. The enemies only attack you, Olimar, or the other players, but leave the regular Pikmin alone. Maybe it is possible we'll be seeing more enemies in Pikmin 3 that aim for the captains instead of the Pikmin, similar to the bumbling snitch bugs found in Pikmin 2. Maybe it's possible that some enemies have developed these abilities as a survival mechanism against the Pikmin army, because if you beat the leader, well then what are the Pikmin going to do then? Maybe some creatures can actually eat your captain like they eat Pikmin. But anyways, I'm veering off track. Let's continue with that Wollywog boss. So, the Wollywog boss does not jump on you like its cousins. Instead, it uses its long tongue to smack you. This tongue is actually its weak point. Now, he lives inside a pond in the middle of the arena, safely out of the reach of you and your Pikmin. Because while you and your Pikmin can actually enter the water in this game, even the reds and the yellows by the way, wouldn't the Pikmin short-circuit in the water or electrocute you since the Pikmin in this game are a little animatronics? Nah, whatever. Maybe they're waterproof. Anyway, the water really slows your movement to a small crawl, leaving you vulnerable to the enemy attack. So in this form of the boss, you really can't approach him without getting smacked in the face and sent flying by his tongue. So, how in the world can you defeat this guy? Well, I'll tell ya. You must dodge his violent tonguing, until eventually he smacks himself right in the freaking face with his own tongue. Ah, fail, man. I mean, how can you smack yourself in the face with your own freaking tongue? Oh, whatever. Well, anyway, now that's how he knocks himself out. That's your opportunity to rush in with your Pikmin and kill his tongue. A boss that uses its tongue, or a similar long-range weapon, located in a central area out of reach of your Pikmin. And that long weapon it's attacking you with just so happens to be its weak point? That actually sounds more like a Zelda boss, but I guess it could fit in with the whole world of Pikmin. So, getting my stuff in order again, the second phase of the boss has it hopping all over the arena, using its tongue to attack again, except this time you need to hit it back, which you can do now since it's hopping all over out of the pond and vulnerable to attack. I think this is a cool idea for some of the bosses in Pikmin. More specifically, most bosses in Pikmin follow a specific pattern. Dodge attacks, find the right Pikmin to use, then smack that weak point 3 times until it dies. Well, most bosses make this boring by using the same attack patterns for all 3 phases of the boss, except each time the boss is closer to death, all that changes is how fast the boss moves or how much damage it can deal at once. Now, I'm not saying that the bosses in Pikmin 3 are bad per se. I mean, some of them are really creative. I mean, look at the Man at Legs, or the Gulix, or the Postal, or heck, even the frickin' Water Wraith. But while these bosses are in fact very difficult to defeat, what I'm really trying to get at with this statement is that after figuring out their attack patterns and whatnot, the fight themselves end up becoming repetitive, boring, and even, dare I say it, anticlimactic, especially in the case of the Water Wraith. What a joke. Yes, I know, it was supposed to be a joke, okay? Alright, that was a bad example. Most bosses are either difficult because of how much damage their attack can deal at once, Empress Bullblack, how much health they have, or heck, even a deadly combination of both. Now, not to say that these are bad bosses, but I do think they could have been improved by lowering the attack or the health and dramatically increasing mobility and variation in their battles. I know this is a bit hard to explain, but if you compare the bosses in Pikmin Adventure to the other Pikmin bosses, you'll see a significant difference in these types of battles, besides the obvious difference that they are different bosses. I mean, the bosses in Pikmin Adventure change attack strategies greatly depending on how close they are to death. In the case of the Wollywog, after destroying its tongue, it goes from an immobile obstacle that shoots its tongue at you, like the Emperor Bullblack's, to an enemy that moves all over the place and then you have to catch it to kill it. This is what I mean by having the bosses change their attack patterns and strategies. Personally, for me, but this isn't actually me, but you know, this makes the boss even more fun to battle as you're trying to adjust your attack strategy to the boss as the boss adjusts its attack with you. Make sense? I mean, the part where he killed your Pikmin isn't very fun, I suppose, but I think that these types of bosses and enemies would introduce a whole new layer of strategy to your battles. This would be a very good move in the next Pikmin game. If I were in charge, and by that I mean, you know, which I'm not, but hopefully my thoughts are in sync with Miyamoto on this one. And if Pikmin Adventure is any indication, our thoughts are completely in sync. It's not something I'd thought I'd want in a new Pikmin game, but really, you'll almost surely see what I mean if you're playing it yourselves. The last boss is one of the more traditional bosses, as far as Pikmin bosses go anyway. The Bladed Beeb. It is classified as an alien insect, which probably does not mean much. But it would be pretty cool to find out if that the final boss in Pikmin 3 is actually an alien itself, especially in the light of those strange cosmic coincidences that occur. Especially in the light of those strange cosmic coincidences that occurred a few days ago. Which brings up another insignificant yet significant enough point to note. Some of the enemies in the Pikmin series are spicy blends of organic creatures and machines, such as the Grattling Goinch, which I think is a goldfish and a Gatling gun, and the Titan Dweevil, which is a cross between a spider and a bunch of random household objects used as a weapon, while every boss and enemy in Pikmin Adventure are machines. Nothing too important there, just thought it was a bit humorous. Also, important to note that none of your Pikmin are immune to any of the enemies or the bosses in Pikmin Adventure. I like the idea of bosses and enemies that none of your Pikmin are immune to. Personally, I think that Pikmin 2 overdid it a bit with the immunity mechanic. Because some of the enemies were very easy to kill if you had the right type of Pikmin that was immune to its attacks. I'd much rather prefer to use the Pikmin's abilities instead of their immunities as an advantage. Of course, I hadn't had the chance to play a real Pikmin game in such a long time. I may be getting my facts wrong, but anywho, back on track with the Bladed Beeb. He has swords attached on his hands, which he uses to swipe at you and your Pikmin. After destroying one of its 2 weak points, it generates all its health and simply moves faster, gaining a few new attacks. This is what I mean by a typical Pikmin boss. Though this is one of the better kinds, since it moves everywhere and gives you a bit of a challenge in trying to find an opening in its attacks to attack it. So I don't really mind these types of bosses, but I would rather prefer if they were more like the largemouth Wollywog. Not exactly like it, of course, just having those qualities I mentioned before. Something I hope they don't copy, however, are the clones. I haven't fully played Pikmin Adventure all the way through, but I'll clarify what I mean by the clones. In Pikmin Adventure, there are 2 sets of levels, the standard levels and the extra levels, which you unlock by beating all of the standard levels. There are twice as many standard levels as there are extra levels, but as you may have inferred from the name, the extra stages are extra hard. Ho ho ho, I'm Santa. In these extra stages, you play through super difficult, super long levels, most of which end in a super strong boss, which is simply a boss from the standard stages, but revamped and recoloured and made stronger and faster. I really hope that the Pikmin 3 bosses don't get this treatment. I really don't want to fight a better version of a boss when I could be fighting a brand new one. I mean, I know it's harder to make up a new boss, but these clones just reek of lazy game development. But if they do include these types of bosses, I would at least rather have them go at it like how Pikmin Adventure did it, as in have the clones in a separate, harder, more difficult mode, separate from the main game. A new mechanic in Pikmin Adventure is the ability to actually change the colour of your Pikmin if you're playing as Olimar, an ability only available in the extra stages. Now, why in the world would you want to change the colour of your Pikmin, you may be wondering? Well, I'll tell you this too. In the extra stages in Pikmin Adventure, there are some enemies which can be dealt extra damage by certain colours of Pikmin, or in other words, some Pikmin are super effective against certain enemies in the extra stages. Now, I guess it would not make much sense to have these enemies that are weaker, per se, against certain types of Pikmin, but I like the idea of Pikmin that work better against certain enemies that could be in Pikmin 3. For example, the onion crab thing, which I heard is the hydrospheric clawster apparently, blocks Pikmin with a giant claw. Well, if you had Rock Pikmin with you, I bet you could crack its claw and expose its fleshy shell, leaving it vulnerable to attack. So this is a good case where a type of Pikmin is super effective against an enemy, yet the enemy is not a super weak or vulnerable, and can actually still manage to hold its ground against the type of Pikmin it's not vulnerable to. I mean, cracking its claw won't prevent it from spitting out bubbles to trap your Pikmin, and yourself in, right? Oh, and I also heard that the flying moth thing is called the bioluminescent Warthog, though I had to do some digging for those names, so they might not be official. Also in the minigame are timed levels. These are, as the name suggests, levels with a time limit. Like in some of the Mario games, you could pick up and add more time to the clock. Well, as we all know by now, Miyamoto is thinking of including a time limit to Pikmin 3 as well. By the way, did you know that Pikmin 2 had a planned time limit too? Well, it did for at least half of the day. Basically, if you remember, the main plot was to bring your company out of debt by collecting random pieces of trash from the Pikmin planet. After doing that, you could return to the planet and 100% the game by collecting everything you left behind before. Well, originally, you were given 30 days to relieve the debt, which I think is an abundance of time. I mean, if someone can 100% the entire game in 8 freaking days, 30 days would just be too much. And if you couldn't collect enough treasure to satisfy the debt, you and Louie would be laid off, and would have to return home to your family jobless. You can still find the music on YouTube. It's called You're Fired, Beta Pikmin 2. Maybe they couldn't create a bad ending for the game because there wasn't enough time or something. But personally, I think that adding in a time limit would have been good for the game. You know, how some people didn't feel any need of urgency in Pikmin 2 like in Pikmin 1? You know, it would have been more than suitable. Well, the threat of receiving the pink slip from your boss would definitely have hit some emotional strings with some people, especially considering the financial recession we've been in now. Yes, I know the recession wasn't even around during Pikmin 2's conception, but still. Anyways, back to what I was saying. I noticed these levels in Pikmin Adventure and got to thinking of how exactly Miyamoto could add in a time limit to Pikmin 3 without reducing the lifespan of the game, and still be able to include enough replay value to keep the players interested. Well, Nintendo could move in on this in two ways. They could go Pikmin style and add a time limit, but still have the option to 100% the game after completing the main objective, which is timed. Or, what I think is what they're going to go with, go Pikmin Adventure style and have the option to increase the time limit while you're playing. So say the original time limit is 15 days, but you could collect something to increase or renew the days that you have remaining, until in total you have around 50 days on the clock. And then, after completing the main objective, you could return to the planet and 100% the game, like in Pikmin 2. I think this plan would be most effective for the new game, but if anyone else has any other ideas, feel free to say it. Now, we don't know anything about Pikmin 3's plot so far, so we do not have any ideas on how this idea would work. But it's a thought. Hopefully a good one, but an interesting thought nonetheless. In Pikmin Adventure, there are 4 types of areas introduced in the game. These are the grassy areas, the watery areas, the barren areas, and the winter area. Assuming these areas return in Pikmin 3, we could be seeing a return of the Valley of Repose, the Perplexing Pool / the Distant Spring, and the Awakening Wood / the Forest of Hope. I would not connect the Wistful Wild to the barren area, since, despite the similar colour scheme, the Wistful Wild was more of an autumn type area rather than a barren area like in Pikmin Adventure. Furthermore, we can actually connect these areas from Pikmin Adventure to what we have seen in Pikmin 3 so far. For example, the grassy area in Pikmin Adventure include giant mushrooms as a part of the border. The Pikmin E3 demo brought to light the new types of barriers that could be broken down by your Pikmin. Instead of the generic tree root / stone walls in the first and second games, these new types of barriers are made of new materials such as sand, glass or crystal, and oh yeah, giant fungus. Now, you may be a little bit skeptical about the connection even by this point, due to the assumption that all we have seen so far of Pikmin 3 are the challenge mode levels. Pikmin found in the ground, no onions, research pod, etc. But we can still assume these levels are based on actual areas or themes in the main story. For example, Pikmin 2 had challenge levels with new layouts but similar themes to certain caves found in the main story. And the first Pikmin's game challenge levels were directly taken from the main story, so I don't suppose it's too much of a stretch to say that the Pikmin 3 challenge levels will feature new layouts but similar themes to the areas in its new main story. In the December Direct video, we see count them, two more new possible area themes for the main story, as well as 2 possible extensions to the areas we've seen in the E3 demo. The first 2 scenes, I believe, are part of the same area as the E3 demo area. Also, the first new scene shows an area that resembles its Pikmin Adventure counterpart more closely. Now, assuming this is all just one area, the new areas in Pikmin 3 must be huge, or there could be a different possibility, which I'll go into more detail soon. The next new area is a cave. In Pikmin Adventure, caves weren't their own area, just a few sections like Pikmin 2, but I'll be talking more about those caves later. What I'm thinking with this area is that it isn't its own area, but a challenge mode sort of level like in Pikmin 2. First off, despite seeing next to nothing about this area so far, it seems to be sort of tiny for a Pikmin 3 area, at least compared to the grassy area we've seen previously. You've barely seen half the level yet, it's too dark! You may be saying to yourselves, or me if you prefer. So I don't know why you have such a high-pitched voice, but you do. But we need to look closer into what we have seen to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. In the scenes from the video, we can see some wires running along the ground. In the background of the scene was the giant moth thing. I have no idea whether bioluminescent Vortog is official or not, so it's hard to make out. But you can see the blue wire leading to a metal box, which may be a battery, and the red wire leading to a light bulb thing? I'm assuming this is part of some complicated puzzle concerning the wires. Those sparks in the background are coming from certain parts of the wire, possibly areas where the wire is broken. Maybe some of the cave enemies have chewed off parts of the wire, and you'll have to retrieve the wire from inside them by killing them, and place them back into the broken areas to fix the circuit, and connect the metal box thingy with the light bulb thingy to light up the entire cave, and that's electronics, everyone. But I digress. Unless there are several of these things, it doesn't seem very reasonable for one light bulb to light up a giant area of cave. And even if the wires and whatnot have absolutely nothing to do with the area besides adding decoration, I really can't imagine exploring a giant cave area with so little light. Unless that was what the development team was going for. But I'm sure many people will disagree. This is just what I'm basing off of the Pikmin Adventure game, where the caves aren't their own area. So I may be wrong, and the cave may in fact be its own giant area. Who knows, besides Nintendo. The next area seems to be the barren area, and I cannot find any direct similarities between the two areas, despite the similar colour schemes are and some of the scenery, but I'll just assume that this is the barren area, which means if Pikmin Adventure is going to go by, we still have the winter and watery areas to look forward to, and I'm going to say that I had another theory on the area layout, but I forgot. Just kidding, ha, I got you there, didn't I? Anyway, I'm thinking, maybe all the areas are connected. I mean, of course, all the areas are technically connected, but like how in Pikmin 2, the final trial and the impact site were fused into the Wistful Wild, all of the areas in Pikmin 3 could be fused into one giant overworld. Now, I really have nothing to show for that thought, besides possibly areas between different themes in the video. But, if the areas in Pikmin 3 are really big, it isn't too improbable that some of the old areas would be smushed together to make room for new areas. It's a thought, at least. It's something. With this whole idea with the whole Pikmin planet being one massive overworld, I think that could work. I'm just not sure how spawning could work. Like, where you'd... Because maybe you could, like, start off where you left. Like, it was so big that you can't take all the treasure in one day, because it'd take ages to get to a spot. So maybe you go to a specific, like, landing zone, and then you stay... And that's where you end your day or something. Or you get to choose where you land the next day, so you sort of plan it, but you can't go anywhere on the map at first. You have to walk to it first. You have to find that area before you can land there, if that makes sense. So, you know, we'll see what Pikmin 3 does with that, because that would be very interesting, the whole massive overworld instead of separate places. But then how would the seasons work? You know what else I think is an interesting idea? Well, do ya? It's the ability to change the colour of your Pikmin, like in Pikmin Adventure. I mean, it's not likely, but maybe there could be sprays that you could use to temporarily gradualise, it's what I'm calling changing one Pikmin to another, your Pikmin into a different colour. Like the spicy sprays turn your Pikmin super strong, like little mini Hulks for a few seconds. I think it's an interesting idea, and could potentially add a whole new layer of strategy and depth if done right. But it would most likely be too overcomplicated to handle, depending on how many new Pikmin are being introduced into the game. Hopefully tons. But I'm thinking that Nintendo would need to increase the 100 Pikmin on field at a time limit if too many new Pikmin are introduced. Not only that, but if too many new Pikmin are introduced at once, well, it would be a bit confusing to keep track of every type. But I can somehow easily remember all qualities of the 6 Pikmin, including the Bulbmin, and the rest of us pretty much no problem. So I guess I could remember 6 more if I tried. If that is how many is included in the new game at least. As a final note here, I really enjoy the controls for Pikmin Adventure. More specifically, the controls for playing as Olimar on the gamepad. If you hadn't heard, Miyamoto recently announced that you'll be able to play Pikmin completely on the gamepad, as in off-TV play. Well, if the game doesn't end up looking too cramped on the gamepad, I would at least hope that they would incorporate Pikmin Adventure's control in this game, where you get to tap on the screen where you would want to throw your Pikmin. In my opinion, it would work perfectly as a secondary control option to the Wiimote and Nunchuck. I might even use the gamepad more in that case. I would probably only use it if it was completely necessary though. But I really want to experience the Pikmin in full HD graphics. I mean, but also, I would hope that while using the Wiimote with Pikmin 3, that all the HUD stuff would be pushed down to the gamepad, clearing space up top to free up space for those beautiful pixels. So anyway, those are my ideas and observations. Hope you enjoyed my analysis. P.S. As of the time of this writing, I've heard we'll be receiving a lot more Pikmin 3 news by the end of this month. Also, online multiplayer! No, I heard that's going to be local, but whatever, we'll see. So yeah, that's basically the end of this massive message, and by massive, guess how many words it was? Go on, guess. No, 4,555 words, and I nearly lost it, Jesus. Anyway, that's the end of the video. What do you guys think? You know, Nintendo Land, is it hiding secrets or is it not? So many questions, so little time. Well, my name's Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.